Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of Inside The Parlor. I'm coming at you from my garage. I'm Corey Santistevan. Today, we'll be sharing stories and cutting hair with Otis Amey. Otis is a phenomenal public speaker that uses his gifting to deliver relevant and life-changing messages to anyone from youth students to corporate professionals to pro athletes. Some of the things we'll be talking about is impacting today's youth, revisiting that time Otis was drafted into the NFL, and what it means to operate your purpose. Welcome to Inside the Parlor. What's up, Otis?
Hello, Corey.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you,
Cool.
man.
Welcome to the parlor, man.
Appreciate it. It's looking nice.
Awesome, cool. You can go ahead and grab a seat. Otis gets his haircut every 2 weeks. So to keep that fresh haircut look, we are doing a low fade with the #1 guard on him, cutting with the grain on top so we can preserve length. Using the trimmers and a straight razor to line him up, and finishing him with a high shine pomade to make sure that fresh haircut is shining and glimmering and dazzling. You get it. When we met, you were with the San Francisco 49ers, man. How was that? I mean, even because you played ball in school too, like high school and
before
then.
Playing since I was 7, man. And that was definitely, my dream growing up. And watching SportsCenter one day and pointing at the screen and saying, I want to play. I'm gonna play for the San Francisco 49ers, and it only being 20 minutes away from where I grew up, it was just a dream come true. It's just, with your upbringing, and you grow up and your family doesn't really have much. You just want to provide for them, and with my mother and father, they sacrificed so much. It just really drove me and propelled me to where I got to. So dealing with coaches that I didn't really like, or times that I wanted to quit or give up, I just would think about the different things, the different whys that I had. Now, with my family, it's easy for me to keep grinding.
Yeah. For sure, kind of helping you to push through that, where you're almost like you have that goal.
Right.
That's what you want to do. That's awesome. And so, with so with the whole draft, I mean, because that's upping up the level where it's like it's one thing being on the playground and being picked last or being picked first, but how does that whole draft process work when you're going in?
Yeah, it's tough, man. A lot of kids don't understand. There's about 1 million kids that are playing high school football. Or just finished playing high school football that are about to graduate, and a lot of them think they're going to make it, but only about 70,000 of those 1 million kids are actually going to be playing college football. Wow. And then from that 70,000, only about 230 will even get drafted by an NFL team. So definitely, I mean, the odds are not stacked in anybody's favor, really. No, not at all. That's wild. Now, with kind of trying out, would you see when college time came, would you see you knew scouts were going to be there, or was it just random times? It was super random. I remember there was a day when I was walking by one of the meeting rooms, and a scout from the Steelers was in there, and I noticed he was watching me doing one-on-ones, and so that's when I learned the dudes show up at super random times, and they'll watch every single play you've ever played. So they want to see. They don't really care to see your highlight tape. They want to see what type of player you are on the downs when you're not getting the ball thrown. They want to see if you're really a team player, if you'll block and do what you got to do for your teammates. Yeah, for sure. Man, that's crazy. And so you said that was somebody from the Steelers that was coming in. Now you went to Sac State, right? Yes. Okay, cool. So you were super local. Is that something that you wanted to do? You wanted to stay around this area? Were you open to going other places? I was open to going anywhere. My last game at Logan in Union City. I got hurt. The bursa sac in my knee burst, so I had fluid in it, and so a lot of the big time schools withdrew their offers. So I really had no option but to go to Sac State. So what did you major in? Communications, man. That's one thing that I think kids really need to try to figure out is their purpose before they get to college. Because I switched majors 3 times, so I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Sure. And so once I got into communications, the classes were easy, but naturally, because it's what I do. I just didn't know it at the time. How we were talking about social media before, where it's the communication between
individuals has been so kind of not necessarily tainted, but it's almost dying. It's almost a dying art, and so to almost kind of push, like, oh, these are classes that you're able to learn in school to help you do this better, something that should be kind of lifelong.
Right. I mean, if you look at the most successful professions like the president and whoever else, even athletically, you can't be it's kind of hard to be successful being an introvert. As an athlete, if you're good, you're going to be interviewed. You're going to be out doing speaking engagements, be in the community. The highest paid professions for people that are, planning on making a lot of money, you have to have good communication skills.
Absolutely. Did you always want to be a public speaker?
And the crazy thing is if you went to high school with me, you would never believe what I do now, because I was the shy, quiet kid that just kind of cracked jokes and played sports and had good grades and did my thing, kind of kept to myself.
Yeah.
Very introverted then. But I think when it started happening, I always did talent shows, but I think when it started happening was on the Niners, I was always like the community liaison. And so at YMCAs and Hunters Point and Boys and Girls Clubs, I would usually be the one to go speak. And I noticed that I was very comfortable and didn't have that fear. I guess I say that's the second most feared thing to do in the world. And I noticed I didn't really have that fear or apprehension to do it. And so when I went back to take more classes, the classes were easy. So I was like, okay, this is something that I actually enjoy doing and could potentially make a career out of it.
Absolutely. It's really cool. And so what was kind of some of the first opportunities where you got to be a public speaker? You mentioned with the Niners, but then kind of afterwards, what were some of the things that you got into?
Yeah, a lot of times end of season banquets.
Okay.
So bringing me in to talk to sports teams, and then at Sac State and some other schools that have like the Black Student Unions, or they have other campus clubs that I would come speak at. And then sometimes youth groups at churches, a lot. So that's how it really started. Now it's developed into even speaking to some corporations.
Yeah.
Just depends on whatever they're looking for.
No, for sure. Now, what are some of the challenges that you see in doing this, in talking to the youth, and kind of just some of those things that you run into?
Man, there's so many things. I think the biggest one is the fact that you can pour and sow into these kids, but if they go home and their parents are teaching them things that are contrary to what you're saying, it's really hard to compete because they're around their parents all the time.
Right.
That's a big one. The biggest epidemic going on, a lot of people may not even realize, is fatherlessness. And so a lot of these young men who need a male figure in their life don't have one. So they may be more apt to get that attention, that male attention, from a gang or some other outlets. Social media is a big thing. Definition of success has changed for these youngsters. They think getting likes, comments, and shares on posts of success instead of actually really doing it. So they created this fake persona on social media where they're an extremely successful person, but in real life they're not.
Right.
So dealing with that is big, and then a lot of these kids are disillusioned where they think that they're going to play big time ball or be some entertainer, but they really don't even know what the odds are, haven't counted the cost to see what's really going to take to get there.
Yeah, totally. That's have you had the opportunity to kind of take some of like particular students, like maybe it was like just a couple of them, and really kind of be able to follow through? Because I imagine that's kind of some of the hardship too, is where you go to these schools and you might not necessarily see that kid again.
Right.
And so being able to kind of take them under your wing, do you see students being receptive to that and kind of wanting that?
They definitely are, man. And God has blessed me to have the opportunity to play in the NFL, because now I can, a lot of times, say the exact same thing their parents are telling them.
Yeah.
But because they're trying to go where I've been and I have that, that background, they'll instantly listen to me and respect what I'm saying. But there's a few kids, that's the most frustrating part, is that I can't, not like I'm doing anything super special, but it's like, how many kids can I really mentor? Because I have 2 kids of my own. I got to make sure I have time for my family. My wife called me on the way here. It's like, when are you coming home?
Yeah.
But when I do get a chance to really sow into somebody, you see their life change. I just posted a video on Facebook of a young dude that I met and witnessed to, along with some other men from our church, on July 4th of last year. real militant, just real angry. But he's connected, plugged into our church now, got baptized in the river.
Awesome.
Raps, and he's, super dope. Now he raps for the Lord. So
That's awesome.
just seeing what it takes to connect with somebody, a phone call, a text every now and then, and just encourage and build them up, it goes a long way.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. There's this hairdresser, his name is David Wagner, and he ended up, he was just a super successful hairdresser, and there's this one time he had one of his regular clients in his chair, did his thing, made her look beautiful, was engaging with her and everything, and the woman left. A couple weeks later, he ends up getting a letter from her saying, "Hey David, I just want to thank you for just your love and making me feel beautiful. I was actually getting dressed up and getting my hair done so I can go commit suicide."
Wow.
And it was just like, it floored him. It's just like you never know the type of impact that you're going to have on somebody. And just really not taking that lightly. It's having that, maybe it's just a kind of a little bit of a stirring inside your stomach or your gut, or you feel that, the Spirit speaking to you of like, man, I should go talk to this person. And how many times do we kind of, I'm not going to smile at this person as they're walking by, or whatever it is.
Yeah, it just happened to me. So when you come to my church, I used to be over the usher and greeters, and I transitioned onto teaching new members class, but I'm still there at the door, and so I've grown accustomed to affirming people, edifying them when they come, and being able to see their demeanor, the spirits that are on them, and seeing them every Sunday or Wednesday. I can see if they're not their usual self. And so I've learned that, like, man, you never really know what anybody's going through, and you should always be prepared to kind of build people up. I was just at the UPS store going to my P.O. box, and there was this dude, and for whatever reason, I just felt something say, you need to talk to this guy, this young man. I seen he had a wedding band on, and I said, God, if he happens to walk out when I walk out, then I'll say something to him. And sure enough, he's right behind me. And I just got a chance to introduce myself to him and say, hey man, where you go to church at? He's like, I don't go to church. I was like, oh, okay. And then he just started elaborating. He said, you know what? I grew up, what do you say, Pentecostal. Something about his parent. One dad was Pentecostal, and mother was Lutheran, and now he's married, but he doesn't go to church. So I had an opportunity to kind of tell him what the Bible says about that and the importance of being connected to the local body, really developing that personal relationship with the Lord. Yeah. And he received it, and also had the opportunity to pray for him. Never met the guy in my life, but just stuff like that. It doesn't have to be anything super spiritual or religious, but just connecting with people.
All right. What do you say is the kind of next step for you?
There's a ton of them, but I really want kids to know what all their options are. Like, I deal with a lot of sports players, and so I want them to know, like what we talked about earlier, like what are the chances of really making it, so they can make an educated, really, so if they're gonna wholeheartedly pursue trying to make it professionally, they'll know, okay, like, man, I really need to grind because it's next door to impossible to make it, but also I know that even if I do make it, it's not a long lifespan, so I really need to have a plan as to what is my identity outside of sports, because it's going to be over before you know it, and you're still going to have a lot of life left to live.
Did you see a lot of guys doing that, or were they just kind of like living in the moment?
Man, I would say 99% of players that play professional sports, regardless of the sport, are living in the moment, and a lot of it has to do with your upbringing. I never heard the word budget or stocks and bonds or investing in my household. A lot of it has to do with the system that's in place that's designed to pitch. There's pitching false sense of what success really is, and so kids think it's buying the big house and the big cars and having money and women, which is so far from the truth. If that was the case, people like Robin Williams and Amy Winehouse, you name it, wouldn't be committing suicide. They have all this money.
You kind of see almost like a culture shock when it's like, man, I based my whole life on this happening. I didn't think about an exit plan. Do you see that kind of happening, and what's kind of some of the things that you may have seen other people kind of do? I imagine that's pretty depressing when you get to that point when you know you're not going to play ball anymore. What do you do next?
Right, it's definitely a humbling experience. I dealt with it myself, playing in San Francisco for 1 year. At one point leading the entire league in permanent turnout average, and still getting cut the next year. It's just kind of like, man, I worked so many years to get here, and it's been wrongfully or rightfully, whatever, it's been taken from me. What's next? So as a man, you have to humble yourself and kind of weigh out your options and decide, do I still want to pursue this? And if so, I may have to go to a lower level. I mean, like I did and play the arena football league, and grind there and be the best and have an opportunity to get back. But it's tough, man.
Yeah. What do you think us as a society? Because I think what you're doing is great, but it's so hard to multiply that.
Right.
On the level that it needs to be. Because we need to have that tenfold,
right, exactly.
Around. So what are some things that you may see kind of happening now that will kind of do that better in the future, if anything?
I think really people getting out their comfort zone and operating in their purpose. For instance, if I never took the leap of faith to do what I'm doing now, then I would still be in some cubicle, right? Having a sales job, being able to pay my bills, but that's it, just existing and then eventually dying, not really having an impact. And so if more people would do that, operating their purpose, if everyone was operating their purpose, then they would have more freedom, more time to create margin in their life and be able to mentor somebody besides their own kids. The whole raise a village, it takes a village concept. I think that's what it's going to take. People starting their own businesses, getting out their comfort zone and sacrificing.
The NFL was not the end of Otis's story. Being a professional athlete has given him many opportunities to sow into the lives of others, helping them to understand their value and worth apart from a high-profile status. Through his role as the Northern California Director for Fellowship of Christian Athletes, Otis constantly is able to connect with students, athletes, and coaches to share his life experiences as well as his faith and relationship with God.
Awesome, Otis, man. There you go.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So cool. So how can the viewers follow you? Are you on Twitter, Instagram, and all the social media sites?
I'm on pretty much everything. I made it simple. It's just my name. So at Otis Amey, whatever it is, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. Website, it's otisamey.com.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, cool. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming in.
Man.
Awesome.
Good to see you.
All right, you too.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed your time inside the parlor. You can subscribe and hit the like button on YouTube, or you can go ahead and leave a generous amount of stars and a review if you're listening to the podcast. We can connect on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Inside the Parlor. More content and appointment for hair services can be found at InsideTheParlor.com. Thank you so much for tuning in.